All right, Shalom, Shalom. First things first, I want to give honor and praise unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem Rachach Kodash, say Barakate Yahweh, Barakate Yahushai, Barakate Yahweh, Barakate Yahushai, Barakate Yahweh, Barakate Yahushai, Bahashem Rachach Kodash. And we give double honor to our apostles and our elders, which are the apostle elders, a great millstone, which feeds us with knowledge, wisdom, and understanding through the spirit and power of Yahbashim Yahushai, 2025, which is the hopeful year of our deliverance and the destruction and the judgment of Esau. Let's jump right into the video. The title of this lesson will be Nero's Watching Rome Burn. Again, Nero is watching Rome burn again. All right. And this goes to, we already know the backstory behind why we say that name. We believe in, through this, if you can receive it, this man has to be one of those emperors coming back. And especially the role that he's playing on a worldwide scale, dealing with prophecy. Okay. So that's why, a lot of these things are taking place during this time, because a lot of destruction and death took place, especially to the Christians, which are Israelites that were being called Christians, because the first time Christian was used was in Antioch. Okay, they called the Israelites Christian then, and it caught on, which is follower of the anointed, or the Mashiachim. All right, so we see here, this is from Health Ranger, fair use. This is just for informational purposes only. He said something very important, and this is, he quoted the Humpty Dumpty story. And what's happening now is that petrodollar is being burnt and losing. One thing that, even with fiat currency, the word, if you go into the word fiat, pretty much it is what it is. They say it's money. But if you lose confidence in that, it's just paper at the end of the day. It's just what's behind it, and what says the value of it is, that's why people honor it. Just like you have something called the IOU. Okay, but just like when the original money, when you go back to gold standard or the silver standard, it had backing to it, and you would just have a certificate to get and trade in that amount of gold or silver, depending on the certificate that you currently possessed. Same thing with the gold. Before the U.S. was taken out of the gold standard, it had certificate that you could go and turn it in for a certain amount of gold or silver. But the point is that the trust that Babylon had current with the currency, and people were making money, so it was one of those, everybody's in the gang, but nobody wants to say nothing, pretty much. So now that's coming to a pass, because there's being deals cut that are cutting out or not benefiting these other nations, and mainly China and their allies. So now there's a different hegemony coming up, which is the BRICS, which we know in the prophecies that's going to lead into the new coming of this new infrastructure when it comes to the money and trade, because you're going to have a financial reset. You have to destroy one and then bring up another. All right, so let's go ahead and play this first part, and then we'll jump into some precepts.
Refers to the British Empire and how they broke things. They broke alliances with war or economic policies that just broke everything. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty Dumpty together again. In other words, it doesn't matter how many people you have, doesn't matter how much labor, doesn't matter how much effort, or even how much money you can print. None of it matters. You can't put it back together. Now, what is it that broke? What is Humpty Dumpty in today's world from the point of view of the United States? It's dollar hegemony. So you could call him like Humpty Dollar sat on a wall. Humpty Dollar had a great fall, right? The dollar has been shattered, or faith in the dollar has been shattered. And it's very clear to me that this is the second of two critical events that have now convinced the entire world to basically decouple from the United States economy and to decouple from the US dollar. This is an earthquake. That's why in the song I said economic earthquakes, existential high stakes. That's what this is. So what are those two events? Well, the first one was in 2022 when the United States ordered the SWIFT system to cut off Russia, and then the European banks seized $300 billion.
So that's the main thing, okay, that he compared it, because the dollar itself is what's burning, and that's really what holds America up. So it's just like if a fire would come through, once that is burned, it's a slow death. Then it's just gonna you the consumer and those who will feel it gradually, and then it might be hitting on a higher level depending on how fast it goes, or it's uncharted territory. Just put it to you like that. We're in uncharted territories because this is another reset that hasn't happened. And the time we had now is that we had one happen before with the Great Depression. Now the money was still there as the U.S. dollar had somewhat of a dominance currently. Now that dominance is waning and people are moving away from it, starting other alliances, using other systems, trading currency in their own. And then that's really, you can't put that back together. You'll never be able to get the people to sign up for another bad deal. That's they'll still make money and watch Hollywood stars, and because people used to think there was gold in the streets when it came to America. They had a nostalgia of looking very upright, and that's why a lot of these places would trust in what Babylon was pushing. But it ended up, that's why it says they that have drunk the wine was mad, and you're seeing the fruits of it now. What's one of the main wine is the philosophies, and then now going into the economical things, because a lot of these nations became consumers by following after Babylon. Okay, and the Lord said in Obadiah, it says that the they that eat thy bread have laid a wound under thee. So they have laid that wound, and you're seeing it now is they've ate the bread, the goodies. China became wealthy, super rich, even though they were still cutting the money just to be able to get cheap trade. But still, they still got up top. If they were charging anywhere near normal price, they would be way above Babylon. So now even them scraping the crumbs, they built themselves a cake out of it. So now it's coming to the time where all these things are coming to a head. I got another video right here. Okay, let's play this. This is fair use, fair use.
Brendan Ahern joining us now. Brendan, as we watch KWEB, your ETF very closely, it's actually up a little bit still on. Well, U.S. stocks, of course, taking a beating as investors assess the impacts of the tariff escalations with China. But let's talk about pockets of investing opportunities on the Chinese closely. It's actually up a little bit still on.
At less than 3% of their GDP is represented by U.S. Trade with the United States, versus 70 to 80% of the U.S. economy is dependent on consumption. So I think China's going to be much more focused on raising domestic consumption. There's a lot of talk about coming domestic consumption stimulus. That might actually come overnight. There's some rumors there. So I think China is basically saying, we're just going to focus on what we can control. And if the U.S. wants to cut off access to our products, that affects the U.S., then maybe it affects China.
Brendan, correct me if I'm wrong.
So you see that this is going to be a newfound territory when it comes to these tariffs and these different things. And we know that this, if you read, this is the Revelation 18 and we'll start at verse 4. It says, "And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins." Okay? Because if you look at what Babylon has pushed throughout the world and ongoing, has been rape, rob, murder, death. And it's, they'll tell you that. They sell weapons. What do you do with weapons? You should use for hunting sometimes, but a lot of the wars and a lot of these things are fought with these guns and these weapon systems that are being produced by these nations. That's why it says, let the, what does it say? Beat their plowshares into pruning hooks, or beat their plowshares into spears. They're pruning hooks into spears. So they're now war economies. They'll spend so much of their GDP on goods and developing the country, but a lot of it goes to war and maintaining the new high-tech weaponry system, or having their hand in the pot on different technologies. And it says, saying, "Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins." And that's going to actually be said in the time of the deliverance, when the Lord calls up the elect into the chambers. And it says that ye receive not of her plagues. Because what's the missiles? The missiles are going to be a plague. They're going to be the plague. But then on top of that, you're going to have Yahushua himself also pushing forth this plague, In the time of Sodom and Gomorrah, that was the example. It says, for her sins have reached unto heaven, and Yahweh has remembered her iniquities. And what's a part of that? Iniquity. All right, Salaki had a call come in, but the main point is here. We read this one more time. It says, for her sins have reached unto heaven, and Yahweh has remembered her iniquities. Reward her even as she has rewarded you, and double unto her, double according to her works. The destruction of the Israelite people, the rape, rob, and murder, the different transatlantic slave trade, the list goes on and on. So all these things the Lord has remembered. And Esau seemed to think there was no payment, just like the time of Cain, when the Lord said, your brother's blood crieth unto me. So those sins have been remembered, and now that judgment is coming. If we caught judgment, something happened to us. There's a reason we're in the position we're in. We're stronger, faster. We're very artistic people. Why is it that we're in this situation? What was the cause of this? Why is this happening to us? Why do we keep getting the short end of the stick? Okay, like a dark cloud is over us. That's the curses. That's why it says rest with us. We know why we're going through what we're going through. It's not a shadow thing. We're not asking for answers. We know now. Now we can fix the mistake that we made. Not fix it, but we can at least acknowledge it. That's why it says, come and plead with me. You know, the Lord is saying, come and plead with me. And how is he saying? Through the prophets. Okay, that the prophets have always been used to communicate between the Israelites, the chosen, let's say that, the sons of Yahweh, and his people has been the prophets. So the Lord sent the prophets. That's why it says, I should give you pastors according to my heart, which shall feed you in knowledge, wisdom. So now that's being fed, and that communication of the prophecy that is coming, same way Jonah, okay, same way you had prophets going to certain places to tell them what was getting ready to come down the pike. It's happening again. And the Lord is saying here, give her double. It says, fill in the cup which she had filled, fill to her double. How much she have glorified herself and lived deliciously. That's also tying into what places live deliciously. Is to live deliciously means you're consuming. The America is known for its consumption. It lives to have the newest thing. These other nations don't have the resources for that. That's why you get the word hand-me-downs. Babylon used to be like that. Their clothes used to be made by the women at home, and clothes were passed down because they were made well. They were handmade. They were hand stitched. The fabric they used it might not have been expensive, or it might have been a little bit expensive, but you knew you got what you paid for. Now, like now, where you have cheap fabric at a cheap price, but it doesn't last that long. You wash a shirt one time, the shit is done. Okay, that's why you pay for good quality clothes, good blue jeans. That certain blue jeans last for years, just depending on how you keep them. Okay, it says how much she has glorified herself and lived deliciously, so much torment and sorrow give her. And then we seeing that coming down the pike now. For she saith in her heart, I sit a queen and am no widow, and shall see no sorrow. Therefore, this is the point, shall her plagues come in one day. This is part of that fire. Death, mourning, and famine. What brings famine? Lack of food, lack of resources. Okay, and if you have a tariff strike, you have a economical woe, these things can happen. All of these things. It says famine, and shall be utterly burned with fire, going into this third world war, because there's not going to be a reason why not to go in the skirmish. Before it was, this is a hegemony. It's pretty much the top dog of the planet Earth when it comes to military might. But if you ain't got no way to pay military or to keep the way thing going, then you're not going to be as strong as you was prior. Okay, just like something just gets sick or something. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death, mourning, and famine, and shall be utterly burned with fire. For strong is the Lord who judgeth her. Okay, that's what we're saying now. All these things are coming. They're coming down the pipe, man. All right, they're coming down the pipe. And then this is the book of Luke 10, verse 18, and it says, and he said unto me, I beheld Satan as lightning falling from heaven, and heaven goes into rulership. Top of the hill, king of the hill. So now if that king of the hill position is losing, man, and these are economical people saying this. This is not something we dug from under a rock, and we're speaking out of our own minds. These are economic. It's clearly seen. Numbers don't lie. If your tariffs are this, then this is going to increase, that's going to increase, and everybody's going to feel it. But we're in a time of that, that judgment coming down the pike. So I just want to bring that information out. I want to make this long, the damn plantation, but Lord willing, is that a fine lesson. and look into these times, man. Yabashim Shai is bringing that judgment, and the Lord willing the salvation to the elect soon, man. All right, with that, I say call Allah, Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahushai, Bahashim Mechach Kodash. Until the next time, I say Shalom, and more not than ever, keep faith. Shalom.